Welcome back. So let's go back to one of our top stories where the Walter Sisulu University has confirmed that the person killed at its Mthatha campus this morning was not a registered student. One person was shot dead, another was wounded following a protest this morning. Of course, the family of that individual protesting that student was not, in fact, a student. But we get a reaction now from Asive Dlanjwa, who is the spokesperson for the South African Union of Students. Asive, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Walter Sisulu University back in the spotlight, and just, you know, terrifying stories that are coming out of there. I mean, when you certainly heard about it this morning, the incident reported to take place at around 7 o'clock in the morning. Just some of your greatest concerns that come top of mind.
Good evening, Osnaledi, also to your viewers and your listeners, and thank you for having us. Look, I think first of all, we would want to send our sincerest and deepest condolences to the family of the deceased person in the incident, and also to the students and the community of Mthatha, because obviously a death is obviously rocked the people and the community around, and hence we send our condolences, number one. Number two, I think we must condemn in the strongest possible terms the violence that took place at the university, especially to the extent to which it led to the loss of life in an institution of higher learning. The question of whether it is a student or anyone is immaterial. It is a public institution of higher learning that in the very first place, as we have called for many years, that those should be gun-free zones. But obviously the first people to bring guns onto campus is often university management through private security, etc. So the reality is that a public institution of that nature, in fact, in a public institution, there should not be a loss of life, there should not be an endangerment of life, and therefore we condemn that violence in the strongest possible terms.
What do you make of the speed of authorities in getting an arrest in the matter?
Look, as I sit here, we have not received any feedback except for what we have seen on social media, which probably not worth commenting on. But our call has been and remains that there must be an expedition, and the process itself must be expedited by law enforcement, one, to investigate, but also to apprehend all peoples who were responsible, but in any persons who was involved in any form of violence in the institution, and that over and above the arrest that we want to be made, that the process in itself must be fast-tracked, because what we often see is that some of these issues drag on for a year and 2 years, etc., whilst justice has not been served, and we must understand that the failure to speedily achieve justice in a situation like this, you leave the students and the community in perpetual fear because they do not know, one, what happened, two, there is no sense that justice has been served, and the extent to which the incident can be stopped from reoccurring becomes rather oblique. So we call for that the entire process and the law enforcement and the justice process must be expedited as much as that is possible.
Yeah, and here's what's the issue is, of course, the work continues now in trying to extract the information as much as possible as to certainly not just what happened this morning, but what led to it. We're playing visuals just now of very angry students, and in this moment that our viewers are seeing here, the students believing that they had spotted the individual that had allegedly shot this alleged student, and were trying to get to him. So a very volatile situation. Your understanding in what led up to the heated moment in the Walter Sisulu University, and I'm not talking about just this morning, from a long, I suppose over a longer period, where you've got students saying they've raised issues over a security company and issues at the residences.
Look, from our understanding of the situation, which we probably will have people on the ground tomorrow, is that there have been issues, particularly with issues of residents, but over and above that, all issues that pertain to the health and the wellness of students in student accommodation etc. So that there had been issues that had been lingering for some time that had not been dealt with. We believe that's what would have led to the unrest. But I think one thing also I must clarify to the viewers is that we must be able to distinguish and separate the genuine grievances of students and populism that often plays itself out in thuggery. There is no any level of violence or destruction of property that as student leaders we can condone in our attempts to make our views known or our grievances heard. I think I must clarify that it is not true, as I have been seeing on various platforms, society condemning students that no, every time they protest, they burn. It's not true. It is often criminal elements that are camouflaged and masquerading as representatives of students that would go on to destroy property or even threaten the life of any person. So I must separate those things. And then also to condemn the institution for saying that there was no formal grievance that was presented by the students before they can go protest. That's absolute nonsense. To the extent to which students believe that their issues are not dealt with and their grievances are not dealt with, they have a right to wake up even in the middle of the night, to mobilize themselves, to organize themselves and protest. So I just wanted to balance those things out, that there are genuine grievances. There were elements from what we are picking up the investigation. We obviously will speak to that. And also to say universities and institutions must not criminalize a genuine student protests, which often at times leads to the violence that we sometimes see.
Why do you think that would take place? I'm not talking about the violence. I'm talking about where the students say formal grievances have been raised with the university and the university says, we've received nothing. Why?
You know, if we did our own investigation, and probably when we do, I am almost certain, Osina Lady, that it is not true that the students had not put in a formal grievance. In the history of student activism and that we've been involved in student activism, there's never been a situation where students just wake up one day, decide that they are taking to the streets. It is often a form of last resort. In fact, it would be lunacy to think that I would have a problem today and then I go on a protest, because in itself it is taxing and it means students must also withdraw themselves from the academic project. So I know for a fact, I can say without fear of contradiction, that the university is blatantly lying, that the issues that the students were protesting about, that they had not known of prior to today. If for them to know, yes, I think that's the point.
Yeah, and I've gotten it. I just need to move on to the next one, because you've got a community activist who's raised issues about why there's a residence manager alleged to have a gun on campus. I want to get your view on that one, because that speaks to the levels of violence that we see. Perhaps talk to us about the steps that you, as an organization, are going to be taking, and if any of them have to do with registration, because you also have the issue of the university saying the student that allegedly lost their life in the matter was not a registered student, or the individual was not a registered student of the university.
A few things very quickly. Number one, we always and we carry on to condemn the presence of firearms and ammunition in institutions. The fact that it is alleged that the staff member had the firearm is consistent with what we have been saying, that institutions are militarizing institutions of higher learning. So it's, if they are not bringing private security, they are sanctioning their staff members to arm themselves in public institutions of higher learning. So unfortunately, it is a trend that has been happening, that is perpetuated, and that is embraced by almost probably all universities, the militarization of institutions, which often and always leads to violence, number one. Number two, it is ludicrous and it is the height of foolishness from the institution to want to distinguish a life within a public institution of higher learning. It is, you see, in an institution of higher learning, you will always have three types of people. You will either have a registered student, you will either have a staff member, or you'll have someone who's not registered, either because they are trying to come and apply or to register, or they are related to someone who is within the institution of higher learning. So it's nonsense that the person was not registered. It's an immaterial fact that the institution is trying to distinguish. If anything, it shows their level of their attitude towards what has happened, which is that of a nonchalant and really no care as to what happened, except as to try and absolve themselves of any responsibility.
Yeah. Asive, thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. Asive Dlanjwa there, who is a spokesperson for the South African Union of Students, speaking to us about the shooting that we saw taking place in Walter Sisulu University this morning. And of course, investigations continuing where that one is concerned.